Thank you so much for joining, folks. I'd like to welcome Rahul. Rahul is a principal product manager at Hasura, and he's kind of been the driving force along with our engineering team for Hasura DDN. And Rahul comes with an extensive background in API products and product management, and very excited to hear from him about everything Hasura DDN and how Hasura V2 users can make the most of it. So, Rahul, welcome to the webinar.
Thank you, Sandeep. Love to be here. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Please shout out on the chat where you're joining from. But over to you, Sandeep.
Folks, our agenda is short and sweet for the day. We are going to get into a quick introduction about SuperGraph architecture and how that powers the vision for Hasura DDN. We will check out a demo of DDN Advanced as well. We've spoken about API authoring and other stuff in the past, so we'll show you some of the recently released DDN Advanced features, which should be very exciting for large teams trying to build API platforms. We'll also talk about how Hasura V2 users can chart their journey towards Hasura DDN and everything about that particular topic. We'll also spend a few minutes talking about innovation at Hasura and innovation in DDN and GraphQL engine. What does that look like? What do we have in store for you in the next few weeks and months and quarters? And then we'll also share some resources on how to kind of track all of that is happening, all these amazing product and feature updates that happen frequently at Hasura, and then we will get to our dedicated Q&A block. All right, there's lots to cover, so without further ado, I will throw my opening salvo to Rahul and ask him why DDN, right? Rahul, so you've kind of been leading the efforts for the design and implementation of Hasura DDN. What were the goals for DDN, right?
The key goals were to listen to our V2 customers. It's been multiple years and multiple customers across the world making use of the GraphQL engine platform. So if you go to the next slide, we've been hearing such demands and asks from a large variety of customers, from the need for standardized metadata, more customizable business logic, better collaboration and productivity between developer teams, and some mechanism to interact and work with API consumers. Apart from that, the usual API-related asks such as observability, multi-region, zero downtime rollouts. So we took this as an opportunity to invest in this new platform we are calling Data Delivery Network. And these are the main reasons why, in fact, would love to know from the participants if any of these pain points or asks resonate with you. Please post on chat, and maybe we can drill down into one of them during the course of the webinar. But if you go to the next slide, so this kind of paints a picture of the vision with DDN, going from that single API connectivity solution to more API platform. And you can see the underlying force here is collaboration. Suddenly you have the ability to work with multiple teams and multiple API consumers. This is what we were getting feedback from our community. And DDN goes beyond just a simple API tool. There are certain new features such as connectors in DDN. And there are two major unlocks. If we go to the next one, there are two major unlocks with DDN, with this larger vision in mind, that how do we enable you to evolve your API at a fast pace. The first is providing that metadata-driven data access layer, which helps you, such as making better reasoning about the metadata with your fellow developers, providing a united API on top of different data sources, providing permissions and metrics on that for governance. And after doing that, there is still more room to improve, because as you can see on the right, the communication loop between the producer, between different producers and between consumer and producer is broken. So these are some of the major challenges which we are trying to solve with Data Delivery Network. So let's deep dive a little bit into producer and data domain owners collaboration. Now, this is a very typical pattern you see in the industry you use. If your current B2 customers, you must be using this for federation if you have multiple teams. However, it is not the most optimal architecture or pattern. You see the orange boxes there, they represent managing and operating separate API servers. That just leads to too many components, operation burden, maintenance burden, especially when we think it's not needed. And complexity grows exponentially as we bring more teams in this pattern. And as a reason, we invested in the advanced capability of data delivery network, which you see in the next slide. Providing a new approach to microservice-based collaboration with supergraph and subgraphs. There are different people developing the supergraph. Realistically, the 3 subgraphs mentioned here are owned by 3 different teams with multiple developers with their own metadata repositories. So how do we replace the need for multiple runtimes to be maintained by specific teams? So we are introducing the concept of metadata-driven modules in the form of subgraphs. And in the diagram above, you can see that the focus is on models and their relationships across subgraphs versus focus on server management. And as we will see in the demo next, that there is only one Hasura project, which can be seen as the blacked or grayed out part in the diagram above. And multiple teams are able to iterate independently and push changes to that one project. All in all, we believe this is a much better and graceful model, especially when you think of cross-subgraph relationships and dependencies.
Makes sense to me. I think just the operational overhead of running multiple components and how that whole thing pans out is not my favorite part of federation. I think there's more to federation than just like every kind of domain bringing their own runtime. But we'll see that in action. All right. Rahul, thank you for that. I believe it's time for us to see Hasura DDN in action, and specifically DDN Advanced. And in addition to being the MC for this webinar, I'm also one of the teams building a supergraph along with Rahul as part of this demo. So what I'm going to do is get out of this slides and get to more interesting things like our metadata. All right. So, folks, like I was telling you earlier, I'm not going to spend a lot of time trying to show you the API authoring experience. Again, in the interest of time, we've done that in several webinars when we announced DDN going GA and it being released. We're happy to do that separately for you if you'd like. So please let us know if that's the case. But what I'm going to show you today as part of this process of building a supergraph is that I have metadata. So what you're seeing on the screen is hopefully in a legible way is some metadata that I've already prepared, which kind of builds a subgraph for me. And this is a fairly complex subgraph, involves a couple of databases, has Postgres, has Mongo, I think Mongo, and does a bunch of things. And I have all of the metadata available here, and this should feel very familiar to folks who are already using V2 as well, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this metadata, spin up my kind of supergraph with just one subgraph first, and show you how it works, show you what the experience looks like for a producer and what are the things that I can look forward to in DDN. And then we'll kind of move to the more advanced and complex workflows like multi-team, multi-repo ones, where I will invite our expert Rahul to contribute his domain to this supergraph. So that's the kind of context for the demo that you're about to see, and I will get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to delve in at any point. Comments are the best way to let questions in, and we can decide whether to get into that right away or towards the end. So please make use of the chat. All right.
I saw a hand up, Delvin. Do you need to have a question at this point? Please unmute your, provide us your question in the chat if needed, but continue, Sandeep. Yes.
Good. All right. First step is I am going to create a project in Hasura DDN by running this DDN command. Extremely fast. I have this, and I'm going to set the context for the CLI so that I don't have to repeat some of these flags going forward. So what I'm going to do is DDN context set project, and project name is caring person 7275. Thank you. Name. All right. So the context for the CLI has been set. Obviously, some metadata changes have happened, not local file system changes have happened. All right. Next step is I told you that I have a subgraph. You can see two subgraphs here, experience and global. These are the two folders here. Global, we'll set that aside for a second. Experience is my subgraph. Global is like a common set of things that are required by most of the other subgraphs. So we'll not get into that now. I'm just going to quickly create these subgraphs. Let me just copy paste these commands. Subgraph create global. So I'm going to run that. This will run, and then I will run experience subgraph as well. So I've kind of let my project know that there are going to be two subgraphs. I've not done anything more than just letting the supergraph know that, hey, expect a couple of subgraphs in the supergraph. And to kind of transfer this context over to the supergraph, this metadata that you saw here when I was showing you my file structure, right? All this YAML inside experience and so on, I'm going to create a build. Now, there are a couple of new concepts, again, stuff that has been covered in prior webinars, but very interesting stuff. Essentially, every change that you introduce, or depending on how many changes you want to kind of stash into a single commit, you can create an immutable build called a build and kind of get this build information across to your project and seamlessly just click a button and switch between different versions. It's extremely powerful. And for the discerning users, you will notice that this is slightly different in terms of how metadata is loaded into your project or node, right? Is truly becoming stateless with this, right? Because the entire understanding the metadata is not dynamically built, it's processed into the running node itself. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm using a shortcut here with this no build connectors flag, which you will typically not use. But again, in the interest of time, I'm going to use this command. Just to let the supergraph know that, hey, there's all of this metadata, why did you take it, why did you build it, and just keep it in store. And in my next command, I'm going to let the DDN project know that it should use this particular build. So as soon as this command is done, I'm going to run a build apply command. This is, again, kind of similar to the metadata apply command, except that now metadata is processed into a set of binaries that are available to the cloud project to use as this, instead of spending precious time processing that metadata. So it's going to do that during the build time, and this makes the whole process of scaling out very seamless. This also makes very, all your exotic production use cases like blue-green deployments, canary deployments, all of these things very, very seamless, because it's just a question of choosing which builds run and what proportion of traffic goes to which. Right, so lots of interesting things that are possible, and you'll see a fair bit of innovation coming up on that end as well. We'll give it a few more seconds for this subgraph to build, and as soon as that's done, we will run the supergraph build apply. All right, so while this is happening, what I can do, and I'm extremely proud of my cooking show style switching of projects here, I already have a project that is running. So I'm going to show you this subgraph that is built here. So it's fairly similar. You can excuse the analytics and sales subgraphs here, but if you were to look at the experience subgraph and the users tables here, these are all kind of coming from the same metadata that I was showing you earlier. So all of this is available for you to kind of query. I can run queries here. They will all work. All because I had some metadata, I created a project, and I let the project know that this is the metadata and it should create a build on top of that. So the builds I was talking about are here. These are all experiments I was running. At any point, I can choose to switch over to a previous build. So for example, let me go to one of the earlier builds here, right? You will possibly see 0 subgraphs here. And then I started to build another subgraph. There you go. I have sales and analytics coming up. And if I go to, let's say, one of the slightly earlier ones, you will only see experience and users, no analytics or sales. So this is how my API has been evolving, and you can use builds to test things, to collaborate on the same project. Lots of interesting things that you can do. So this is my kind of subgraph, or rather my supergraph that I've built, which has one effectively application subgraph called experience. And it has two sources. I can quickly show you that, right? Three sources, in fact, two Postgres databases and one MongoDB instance. So this is my kind of supergraph as it stands. There are a few interesting things I want to show you in another project that I have called Bold Sparrow, which is kind of similar to the one that we were looking at here, right? It's slightly more complex supergraph. I have three subgraphs. I have multiple databases, Mongo, Postgres. I think there's a ClickHouse in there somewhere as well. But what I want to show you here is that the moment you transition from a simple API on a database to a platform, like Rahul said, different teams need to kind of understand what is happening to the data, how it is being used, who's using it, how do you kind of evolve your domains subgraph, and so on. So any information that you can expect to find about your domains APIs or models, you will see that in the Hasura console going forward in DDN. So let me show you a brief example of that. Let's say I own the user's source. It's part of the experience subgraph, but let's say I'm the engineering leader or manager responsible for the user subgraph. So I'm just going to look for that here. And let me just quickly find the user subgraph. I'm just going to clear this. So this is my part of the world, my small corner in the supergraph. User subgraph. It works with a Postgres instance. It has 3 different tables. So I'm interested in understanding what's going on with the users model or table, for instance, right? So I'm going to click into it and see what's going on. So I hope this is legible, because I can full screen into this, and let me just go back. What I like here is the fact that you have everything about this model available here. You can look at the kind of fields it brings, what it is related to. I can look at it in the form of an ERD diagram as well. Again, familiar diagram. This is my table, the relationships it has to subgraphs, both within, to other models, both within the subgraph and within other subgraphs. Very powerful features. We'll get to that in the second half of the demo, but you can kind of see what is going on here, right? So as the owner of this kind of model, I can see what it contributes to the GraphQL schema, what the root fields are, an example query. This becomes very interesting for the consumer, in fact. As a producer, I can see the relationships, the permissions I've set here, and also very interestingly, I can understand what is going on with my model here, right? So I can look at all the operations that are calling this particular model. In fact, I can go even further, and let's say, again, I'm an engineer, I want to deprecate a few fields, I want to evolve this schema, right? There are lots of ways in which I can do that. I can override my GraphQL schema or my soon to arrive REST gRPC schema with different things. But let's say I want to change my database schema in a way, and I'm interested in knowing who's querying, let's say, the reviews field, right? And the password field. These are the things that I want to deprecate and evolve the schema into something else. So I can actually understand what operations, or rather, how often are these fields being called, and are they ready to be deprecated? I can add that deprecated tag, and I see that reviews has been used once. Let's assume this was in the last 1 week, right? This data is from the last 1 week. So if I have this data, I know that reviews have been called once. So maybe I can just quickly reach out to that one API consumer and let them know that, hey, this is getting deprecated, maybe as soon as next week. So maybe, drop a quick PR, get things tested, and let's not use this field anymore. But password is still being used by 9 consumers, maybe 9 different consumers, and it's not ready for deprecation yet. You maybe need to give it some more time for people to make their changes. So all the analytics, the way things are being used, whether directly in a relationship, as a nested object, what is going on at an individual field level, all of this information is kind of available to you at your fingertips, right? And these are very, very powerful features for people who are building and running platforms, people who are contributing their domains to a platform. What I want to do now is I will kind of just run a quick check against my, everything's run. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly apply this build, and let me invite Rahul to this, right? So let me get the build version. I'm going to apply this build. So what this is telling my cloud project is that, hey, there's a new thing that has come up, and you need to register that. Let me go back to this. All right. This is caring of person, right? This is the project that we just created. My subgraph is here as I was demonstrating. And because I use the no connectors thing, I can't query it just yet, but my subgraph is available here, right? So one interesting thing I want to do now is start this advanced workflow. Now, to collaborate with other teams and so on, I need to switch to another tier. So I'll quickly do that. We won't get into a lot of detail about this just yet, but this is something that will be needed as you kind of get into these advanced workflows and subgraph build and lots of interesting things that Rahul is going to show us very soon. So what I'm going to do is step one, invite the leader of that domain, the new subgraph. So for me, that is Rahul Agarwal at Hasura.io, and I find him here. And ideally, I would give specific permissions. So before I do this, let me just quickly create a new subgraph. Let me create a new subgraph for Rahul. Let's make that sales, right? Sales subgraph. Maybe this is information coming from Salesforce, who knows? And I'll create the subgraph, and then I will invite Rahul as a collaborator. Just a second, Rahul.io. And ideally, I would give Rahul permissions to just the sales subgraph. This is what my permissions would look like. I can choose to give him an admin role or a developer role or a read-only role on the supergraph and all of those things. But in the interest of time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give Rahul supergraph admin permissions, right? Again, this is just for the sake of the demo, but as you could see, there are granular permissions available for you to choose what anyone can do depending on their role in the supergraph or in the subgraph, and it's as granular as it gets. So I'm going to quickly send an invite, and Rahul should have the invite in his inbox. So Rahul, I've created the subgraph, I've invited you, and I am going to stop sharing and then allow you to share your screen.
Thanks, Sandeep. Experience subgraph looks very good. Let me explore and see how our team can develop on your subgraph, supergraph, sorry. So let me share my screen, please.
There it is. There's my invitation.
So yeah, thank you for inviting me to this new project. Let me accept this and let's check the graph. So what you have built. So I see that you have two Postgres database, one Mongo database. So let me start seeing if I add a different subgraph sales, like should I add metadata to the subgraph here? So let me quickly copy this project name and start my workflow. So the first thing I will do is, some metadata, Sandeep, I was already working on. I was creating, setting some connectors up. So I'll just, with a different Hasura project, but let me change the project name to the one which you just invited me to. All right, so I think I'm pointed to your project now. And I have a developer who just got free yesterday. So let me assign a user story to the developer in the team to help develop the sales subgraph. So for the next few commands, I'm putting the hat of my developer. So I'm the developer. I put in this metadata here. I used all the CLI commands and LSP to get this metadata in the proper shape. In the demo, we are not going to go in creating the metadata. We'll directly go to the step where, as a developer in Rahul's team, I am creating this. So I create this metadata. Now I need to create a version for it. So this is the first time you are seeing the new command called DDN subgraph build create. This is an advanced capability where a developer of a team can create a version of their metadata only. So DDN subgraph build create. Again, I'm doing no build connectors for demo, but let's do this. So I have a subgraph build created. So if I go to the console again, in the builds tab, Sandeep was talking about builds. Supergraph builds is what results in a GraphQL API. In DDN Advanced, we have subgraph builds as well. And as you can see, Sales has a subgraph build right now, which means that I could have multiple developers in my team iterating on the metadata, and they could create these different build versions of the Sales subgraph. And then but the fact is that if I go to the Explorer, I don't see any model on the Sales subgraph here yet because I have not pushed the subgraph build to the supergraph. So what I will do right now is I'll go and do a DDN supergraph build create. So I'll do a DDN supergraph build create. I'll use this Sales build version. But now you can see the power of advanced is that you could create a supergraph build with any version of the subgraph. And this gives high flexibility into what API you want to test. So let me just quickly run this command. So it creates a build called E6CD. So if I go here, I should be able to see a new build called E6CD. And the moment I click this, you see that my metadata has appeared in your supergraph. And Sandeep, you can even go and check this build out and start querying the models which my team has been working on. Okay. So I would say this is like milestone 1 complete. Milestone 1 is that we have pushed changes to the supergraph in a very version controlled way. Right. So now let's talk about milestone 2. Let's make things a little bit more interesting. Let's go to the coupon model. I see there's a coupon model here. And I think looking at the fields here, I see there's a user ID field. So imagine you give me sales subgraph access today. You also have a user subgraph, maybe give that access to me. What I'll do is I'll comment here on user ID. I'll say, hey, Sandeep, thanks for the sales collaboration. Can I get access to the user subgraph as well? So I'm already kind of exploring the domain and collaborating with you on the product itself. And I want to use this user ID to create a cross repo relationship. So let's do that. So let's try to create a cross subgraph relationship now.
Rahul, I've responded to your question, by the way.
You have? Oh,
yes.
Of course. Oh, wow. Thank you for your...
This is as real-time as it gets, folks.
Right. So thanks, Sandeep, for giving me access to and giving me a blessing that I can create this relationship. So let me go back and do that. So what I'm going to do here is I have metadata written for it already. I'll show you that briefly, but for the sake of the demo, I'm just going to push this there. And then the moment I do this, I can go to my metadata, open the coupons HML. And in the coupons HML, I should be able to see a relationship to the object which I wanted. So I have a relationship V1 users from coupon to the user model using this foreign keys. So I created this relationship. Now let me create a new subgraph build. New DDN subgraph build create with this new relationship. So I get this new build version. Let me go to the console, builds, subgraph builds. I have now I should be getting 2 builds here. Oh, I got logged out. Wait a minute, please. Yeah, so we have 2 builds now. So I think we're looking good here. What I'll do quickly is create a supergraph build with this version, the version here.
This lets me kind of test my subgraph changes against the supergraph, right? So it's very
Yeah, so let's go to the supergraph. Let's check this new build. And in this new build, you see there is a relationship created. So to help you figure out where the relationship is, what I'll do is I'll go to the coupon column. Where is the coupon column again? Let's see.
sales PG. Okay.
Yeah. So I go to coupons column, I go to relationship, and there is this cross relationship. So just let me say that Sandeep, new relationship added. Please test it out. So for you, you'll be able to quickly go and so this is milestone 2 created. So basically, you onboarded me to your supergraph. I looked at your metadata. I created a cross team relationship. The cool thing here is that uh, I don't have access to your metadata. So I don't know what's happening with your models. This is where DDN is helping me. And to put that point forward, let me make some error here. So let me say that this is a multi-repo use case. User model is not in my repo, as you can see on the right. Let me change the model name to something which is erroneous. So let me say I changed the user model name to this one, users unicorn, and let me create a subgraph build. So let me create a subgraph build. Subgraph build goes because subgraph is my own repo. My repo, it does not detect any error because the subgraph has no notion of that other model. So it let me create this new subgraph build. But then if I create a supergraph build, let me do that with the previous version. It gives me an error. It is asking me, hey, what is this user unicorn? It does not exist. Now this is critical. This is first time, I think in the industry, there is a way you can get pre-commit, pre-build validations, kind of giving you compiler type safety and experience. And I can't even push these changes. And the magic which we are doing behind the scene is that we are going into your repo, checking your model name, and giving you real-time validation that, hey, this is not a valid change which you can push.
This is actually very phenomenal, Rahul. I think, like you said, pre-commit checks save a lot of time, right? Imagine if we were actual developers and you commit your changes, you push your PR, you go get a coffee, you move on to other things, and then you get an email that says that things are broken.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit of a context switching rabbit hole that you want to avoid.
Right. So we are not going to use this build version because so I'm going to go back and revert to the previous subgraph version here, which did not have this problem. So let me use this version here to quickly do DDN supergraph build create with the previous version. So or I can take the version, maybe in the interest of time, really, let me take this real quickly and click here. So this new supergraph build went. Now, last is that as a developer of the sales team, I'm saying, hey, the supergraph build is working well with the relationship. Everything is fine. The admin, the team lead, why don't you give it to my consumers? So for giving it to my consumers, all I need to do is do DDN subgraph build apply. And I will use this version again. This is the command which gives the team lead of one subgraph to publish changes to the consumer. So when I will run this command, have a look on the console there, the build which is applied. Let me search that build there. Yes. So that right now it is B6E1. That should change to a new build. So as you can see, as the sales team lead, I created a apply build version here, and you see that that build got applied, and our changes were suddenly posted to the consumer without even talking to you. It's not that we don't want to talk to you, it's just that why disturb you when the metadata is working fine, and why wait for giving a new feature to the consumer?
Absolutely. And that's the true sign of federation, right? That you don't really need to start this platform team or committee to
Right.
make this happen. Okay, then that makes a lot of sense. And folks, that's the end of the demo. So let me just quickly help recap what we just did. Rahul, do you want to just talk about what we just did in terms of the personas and what we were able to do?
Yeah, so what we did is that we have data domain owners and engineering leaders. Sandeep was the engineering leader of the company. He set the super graph. He built one subgraph in there. Then he onboarded a different team, and it could be team leads or engineering managers in your company, where we put the right role-based access control on the metadata, set the right repo, and then the developer of that other team is able to then create across subgraph workflows and do real-time joins using the platform which the domain owners or the engineering leaders provided to that developer.
Right. Okay. And that's super powerful. So regardless of how you want to shape your team, how you structure the team, if you have dedicated folks to kind of handle the super graph or not, you can use a tool to get the to enable your teams to move fast without having to tweak your org structure too much, right? And that's super powerful. Anyone's tried to lead a multi-team program, they'll know that this is true, right? So Rahul, this is awesome. I've of course been tracking this evolution from V2 to DDN. As a V2 user, right? So what kind of mental model do I create for myself when I'm thinking about adopting DDN? I'm a V2 user right now. What kind of architecture am I thinking about? What are my mental models to kind of chart my journey from V2 to DDN?
Yeah, I think as V2 users, first of all, thank you for using GraphQL engine and providing all the feedback. DDN is kind of a new product with a very different architecture. So I think the mental model here, Sandeep, is that you need to think of a better together story with DDN. And
Right.
it is somewhere in between upgrade versus a large code migration kind of mental model. Basically, I think the DDN presents to you an opportunity to future-proof your company's architecture and be a partner to us as we roll out new innovations. So thinking of better together would be the right way forward. In our documentation, we have detailed out these different patterns which you see on the screen, and you can go to the link above the upgrade guide. But basically what we are saying is that there are three approaches you can do. You can do a phase deprecation approach. You can do a parallel routing. And you could use DDN as a router, which we are calling GraphQL-based routing using the GraphQL connector. The third approach is the most recommended one, but we will be able to help you out with any of the approaches you choose. So please read the documentation, reach out to us, and we'll help you upgrade and migrate your V2 code base to V3. But then I think let's look at architecture 3 in a little bit more detail, Sandeep.
Absolutely. Once again, demo engineer reporting for duty. Rahul, I have some questions. You said some very interesting things about the architecture being better together. I'm getting the the feeling that I need to be opportunistically looking for features that will kind of help me do this future proofing or help me extract more from some of these features. So I'll have some follow-up questions for you. But before we do that, let me just quickly give a quick overview of the GraphQL connector demo, right? So folks, what we're going to do as part of this demo is I have an existing V2 project. Let me just quickly open that up. Cloud.hasura.io. I have a ton of projects. I'll open the most recently used one, Clever Penguin 20. So this is my V2 project. This is a test project that I set up with Neon. I have a couple of, actually, I just have one table and 2 rows in it, but that should serve for the purposes of this demo. And what I'm going to do is kind of use DDN as a router to this V2 project that lets me kind of just make sure that I have like a narrower surface area, everything goes through the DDN endpoint. And as and when new features come, and we'll talk about that, I can start to use DDN along with my V2 project, right? So I have this V2 project and I'm going to bring it into DDN. Just author table, 2 rows, I think familiar looking console. Let me just zoom out a little bit. All right. So this is what I have, and this is what I'm going to kind of bring into my DDN project. So similar to our previous demo, I've kind of created a new folder. I ran a command called supergraph init. This is just to kind of get the scaffolding for my DDN project going, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use, and as you know, there are a ton of connectors that we've added support for, or rather a ton of databases that we've added support for by building connectors. We're going to share these resources, but the number of databases that Hasura supports now is incredibly huge. And one of the connectors that we've built is a GraphQL connector. So I'm going to choose that connector, right? Let me do this. I will go with the default port, and for my GraphQL endpoint, I will go back to my Hasura console. Let me just pick up this and let me add it here. This is the URL, I think. Copied, pasted, Clever Penguin. All right, so everything works. Now, because this is GraphQL and this is, my V2 project, I know that I need to send an admin secret. I might need to send a GraphQL introspection query and a bunch of things like that. So I'll go to the connector configuration here. So you can see this hint telling me that, hey, go check out what the connector wants you to do. So I'm going to go to Visual Studio Code and I'm going to open this folder that I just created inside webinars, GraphQL connector demo. I'm just going to quickly open this, right? So I'm going inside, I believe, app, connector, and connector.json. As you can see here, I have some configuration that tells the connector how to introspect and how to execute queries against this underlying source, which is a GraphQL endpoint, of course. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace this with some familiar looking configuration. So let me also open, I have something on my desktop. So let me just quickly do that. Open. This is something that I kind of created yesterday. What I'm going to do is I'm going to also let the introspection part of the connector know that, hey, along with this endpoint, also send this admin secret for this project, right? And the same applies during execution of the request as well. So I'm just going to copy paste this and let me do that. I'm going to save it. All right, back to our terminal. And now I'm going to introspect because I've kind of, what did I call this thing? GraphQL connector is called GraphQL. So what I'm going to do is now that I've let the connector know how to introspect by passing the admin secret, I will find out what's there in the underlying GraphQL endpoint. So let me introspect it. So this is going to use this configuration, go query the V2 endpoint, and it has understood that there are some model commands, relationships, and so on. So I'm just going to quietly add a few of these commands. Let me just do this. All right, and once I've done this, I should be able to do project in it and deploy my changes to cloud. So let me do a project in it. All right, and with these changes, I'm going to do a supergraph build create. So again, I have all of this metadata from the introspection of the underlying GraphQL API, all of it available here. If I kind of go back here, you will see the metadata here, the author table, right? All familiar stuff. So I'm just going to create a build using this. So let me do that. And if and when it goes through, I should be able to kind of see this new project, literate GNU, have all the information about my V2 project, and I should be able to query it from inside DDN, right? So this is my project. Let's go to DDN. Let me go back here, and I think it's just waiting for, okay, these are pinned, so literate GNU is available here, and I'm just waiting for this build to kind of go through. So we'll just give it another second as this kind of connector builds. It's typically faster. Doing this on my local machine, so it's going to take a few more resources.
Great stuff, Sandeep. And like, what question did you have? Like, as the build is getting built, in the previous slide, you had a question for me.
Oh yeah, I think my question was around the innovation, right? So we're doing I mean, this is stuff that we cover in the subsequent slides about a lot of new features, a lot of reimagined features, right? I wanted you to kind of talk about some of those features as well. So do you want to get into that right away?
Yeah, so I think the one, as a V2 user, business logic is, we have highly enhanced the way you do business logic in V3. In V2, action is a great feature we have, but you had to create the webhook yourself, host it somewhere else, and use our templating language to get the right metadata. So now, as a V2 user, you can start leveraging V3 for authoring that business logic, either in TypeScript, Python, Go, or a language of your choice, and bring in that logic. We will host that logic for you on Hasura Cloud, and you can make relationships with those kind of commands to different models in the supergraph. So you can start bringing your V2 metadata like Sandeep just demoed, and then build some new functionality. And then apart from that, new databases and data sources are coming up. Elasticsearch, ClickHouse is available in V2 as well, but like those are the kind of things you can start leveraging as a V2 customer. And that's where we said better together is a way to go forward.
Understood. And I think just in the interest of time, Rahul, we'll wait for the graphical connector build to be complete. But I think one thing I very quickly want to get out of the way is V2 is going to be continue to be supported. We recently published an LTS version. A lot of our critical workloads run on V2. So I think the right lens to kind of look at this V2 to DDN journey is opportunistic use of these new features, and the architectures to kind of use the best of both worlds are available, and hopefully we'll very quickly find that out. Rahul, if you could kind of take us through some of the innovation that we can look forward to in DDN, that will give V2 users something to kind of watch out for.
Yeah, so for V2 customers, we have a plugin framework in V3, which gives you lifecycle hooks and helps you customize the request response lifecycle on the engine. We will publish all these plugins as open source projects out there. You can see plugin allow list is an open source plugin available at this moment. You can check this out for Kit if you want to have more customization on that particular logic. And this is kind of giving you sneak peek into how we are thinking about DDN roadmap. And it is giving us opportunities to reimagine certain features based on feedback. For example, caching. Caching is coming soon with this framework, but in V3, we will make server-side controlling of cache, and also look at how to abstract or provide an option for different storage options apart from, let's say, Redis. So
Nice.
this is like one area where we are innovating. The other area is the next slide, which is API output. So our roots as a company is in GraphQL. So we want to take the opportunity to provide the great GraphQL client developer experience with other API technologies such as REST and gRPC. That's why we are reimagining gRPC and REST support in DDN. Restified endpoints are great, but they were a facade over GraphQL. What we are now investing is in native REST API and native gRPC API. The tech RFCs are out, so please check them out. Give us your feedback on the gRPC client experience or the choice of JSON API, which we are going to adhere to in DDN. So lots of new things coming up here. We definitely are excited about this new rollout, which would expand our reach outside of GraphQL. And then some very popular V2 requests in the next slide, such as group buy is coming soon. ODZ entitlements are coming soon. Right now, if you're an advanced V2 user using inherited roles and you are finding a hard time to manage those many number of roles in your system, ODZ entitlement is something which would be of great interest to you. And then enhanced metrics on subscriptions, new platform dashboards such as these, many more things coming soon. So yes, the LTS version is going to be there. So no worries at all, no panic. Continue using V2. However, start evaluating which of these features best meet your needs and use that pattern which we provided earlier in the demo to start using DDN as well.
That's awesome. So no unwieldy Python scripts to manage my metadata, to manage my permissions. As soon as I have 10 roles, 20 tables, I don't have to start doing that. There's a better mental model for me to do that with permissions. And the same kind of simplification of the architecture is something that I guess we start to expect from DDN. All right.
Yes.
So I have this project available. This connector build has run. So let me just quickly do that. All right. Where's my project? This is Clever Penguin. Let me go here. Let me refresh this. This is Literate GNU. And this now has this information coming in from my V2 project. So there you go, folks. I mean, it's a neon database. It took a while, but you can essentially bring in V2 into DDN and start finding new ways to kind of mix and match the capabilities across both. And speaking of Rahul, I'm also prepared to do a demo of one of the more exciting things that we're doing on top of DDN, which is AI. Should I just jump into it?
Yes, let's do it in the interest of time. We are living in an
Absolutely.
AI-first world, and Hasura is making sure that you are lockstep with the new trends. So take it away, Sandeep, and show what we can do with LLMs on Hasura.
Absolutely. All right, folks, I will keep this quick because we want to leave some room for questions as well. I am a support engineer at Hasura, and we run a SaaS product, let's say DDN. And all the information about said SaaS product lives in a Postgres database. Let's say I have these user tables, projects, invoices, bunch of things. That's my application database or SaaS product database in Postgres. Let's say as a support engineer, I also use Zendesk. Zendesk exposes some REST APIs to kind of interact with it. And Rahul was just talking about how you can kind of bring in third-party APIs or existing business logic by using something as simple as a TypeScript function. So let's say I ask Claude to write a couple of simple TypeScript functions to call Zendesk APIs, and I have brought in Zendesk data into my Supergraph here. So that's actually exactly what you're looking at here. There are TypeScript functions which get ticket comments, get tickets, and do a bunch of things with Zendesk. And what is common between the Zendesk model and the Postgres model is that there are users. Users have tickets and issues and gripes and feedback and suggestions. And users also have projects, invoices, revenue, and they have their own profile, right? So what you're looking at now is like a quick demo of a bring your own LLM solution. And the goal of what we're trying to do is to ground your LLM in the reality of your supergraph data. Or put in more technical words, this is our take on RAG, a data-driven, federated data-driven RAG implementation, where you bring your LLM and we make sure that it has all the context that is grounding it in your data, right? And you saw the supergraph that we're dealing with, and I am going to now use natural language to kind of interact with this data through an LLM. I think we are connected to an Anthropic endpoint in the backend. And that endpoint is going to work with the data that is there in our system. So I'm going to ask it some questions, and I'm going to keep this brief. We have two subgraphs. I'm going to ask it questions across these two subgraphs and kind of do a quote unquote join there. You can also kind of do this in one go if you want, right? So I have a simple question against, let's say, our product database. I want to understand who our top users by revenue are. Like I said, I'm a support engineer. I just want to make sure that churn is as low as possible and all our top customers are happy, right? So I am going to look at, or rather the LLM is going to look at this. So I want to quickly show you the code it has generated, right? So what you're looking at is PromptQL, which, like GraphQL, is like a query language to kind of interact with your data. In this case, it happens to be Python code with some SQL inside it, all of which is understood by Hasura. Just like Hasura understands GraphQL and translates it into queries understood by the underlying sources, Hasura understands PromptQL, which is a set of Python code with built-in SQL, and this is something that you can execute against a federated supergraph, right? And that is exactly what is going on here. So Hasura gets this code. It actually asks the LLM to kind of generate this, so you don't have to write any of this. You just ask questions in natural language. You get PromptQL generated. Hasura executes this PromptQL against your underlying sources. In this case, it gets data from the underlying Postgres database, and that data is passed to the LLM to do LLM things, right? It's doing a lot of this text generation to give you a sense of, hey, what is going on? What kind of retention strategies can you use? How can you upsell and so on? And it has also created this artifact here, right? That there are users and what is the, all the media, of course, but users have revenue and all of these things. And you can see this kind of top users by revenue artifact. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to reuse this artifact and ask it questions that the other subgraph can answer, right? So I'm going to ask how many of these top users, or rather, how many support tickets do each of these top users have? So I'll ask you the question like this, right? And now, what Hasura, in conjunction with your LLM, will do is kind of hold on to this artifact. This is all context that is part of the interaction with the LLM's memory, right? So this is retained, and if you look at the code here, again, more PromptQL here, but look at how it is able to stay efficient by reusing the context in that conversation, right? And it is able to generate some Python code that can take each of the top users and hit the REST endpoint. Now, had that REST endpoint been another data source, it would have hit it once, but unfortunately, it has to loop through this because that's a REST API, right? You build a supergraph over a REST API, sometimes you run into these kinds of issues. So, long story short, it knows how to interact with data from disparate sources, pass that information on to the LLM, and give you information about what to do, or rather the LLM gives you information about what to do. The interesting thing is that the new artifact has been created and you get a sense of what has happened, and I could have done a lot of more interesting things with it, but I'm going to stop now, again, in the interest of time, and see if you folks have any questions.
Very powerful stuff, Sandeep. And thanks, folks, for staying with us over the time limit as well. So any questions for us? Anything which strikes your mind? Otherwise, we have dedicated docs page to go through all the things we covered in the webinar today. Also, yes, Sandeep, you want to?
Oh, yeah, I can do this.
Yes.
I was just waiting to see if there are any questions, but if there aren't any, folks, you know how you can track all these exciting updates. Like Rahul mentioned, there's a dedicated docs page for tracking new kind of not quite feature parity, but you can think of it that way. For example, the restified endpoints that you use in V2, if you want to kind of upgrade that to the spanking new native REST experience that Rahul is working on, then you will know that this feature is available by that docs page. But otherwise, the usual channels apply. The changelog will soon switch to DDN. It's been tracking V2 updates so far. At some point, there'll be a switch over or an extra skin for DDN. GitHub, of course, is the best place to kind of interact, give us feedback, and ask us questions, or report any bugs. And the community call, which of course will continue to report on new and exciting features. If you are a V2 user and you're excited by what you've seen today, or what you're seeing in some of these other calls and resources, but you're still kind of confused about how to make this leap to DDN, do not worry. There's time, and if you need help, we're here for you. Any of our enterprise users, if you have contacted with us, you know who to reach out to, your account execs, your solutions architects. If you don't know who any of those people are, just contact us through the website, and we'll make sure that we have help coming your way. Pretty much the same thing goes for all of the community developers of the Hasura Cloud users as well. We have Discord channels where you can report issues, or you can ask us in a support ticket. We, of course, have community office hours as well, where anybody can just hop on. Tristan is an amazing engineer, and he'll be more than happy to kind of help anyone trying to make this transition from V2 to DDN, and we'd love to help anyone and everyone. So long story short, if you need help, contact us. But otherwise, lots of exciting features coming up, and I'm personally very excited, and I hope you like all these amazing features, and we'll see you in the DDN world as well. If you have any questions, now's a good time to let us know in the chat, or separately, as I just described.